the time to just think through what it was I was trying to process, but not do it from, a static position. I think if you're trying to process things and you're sitting still, like that's not the right recipe. That's actually a recipe for reverting as opposed to growing forward.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're gonna do a great job. So let's make some magic, brother. The Modern Man Podcast with Albie Masland in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. And if you're ready to take your personal and professional growth to the next level, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget, make sure you check out the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. That's where you'll find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and elevate their capacity for life. And we're getting some wind in our sails today. It is my pleasure to introduce, out of Raleigh, North Carolina, founder and president of Valor Craft Performance, Albie Masland, joining me on the call. Albie, great to have you, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. Stoked for the conversation.
Absolutely. And I know I did the quick little intro, and that's just the title and the end game. I'd love to kind of give you the floor, let you introduce yourself in your own words, a little bit about where you came from and what brings you here today, and then we can kind of jump into our conversation.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I would say nothing is linear in my path. How I came to be where I am right now is been really a beautiful journey. Lots of lessons learned and success and failure along the way. Not to be cliche, but to be, actually factual with where I find myself right now and what I look back on, the path that got me here. I'm originally from Central PA, grew up an athlete, grew up a leader, grew up someone who was going to step out front, very much an extrovert and a people person. Navigated my way through grade school and college in that, sort of like, and, after college, I guess to just sort of jump to like where the real development started, after college, you find yourself without that safety net. You find yourself having to reassess what that new identity looks like for you. And I think that, admittedly, that was something that I struggled with. And my process professionally is very much reflected in that. My first job was running an after school program and working as an assistant kindergarten teacher. Okay. So that's like reading really large books and playing 25 5-year-olds in kickball at once.
Yeah.
My next step, I elevated and switched and found myself working for a lawyer. Then, 2.5 years of doing that found me in law school. And then halfway through law school, I come to find that my performance has not been acceptable, and I've been asked to take a semester off. And, that's on me, right? And that was a really pivotal moment for me, because I started to look at the body of work that I had at that point, right around the age of 27, and say, what are you doing? Like, what have you actually done? And most importantly, like, what are you going to do? Right.
Yeah.
What's your next move, man? Because you're sitting here and the expectation's way up here and you're like floating down here. You're not even at C- right now. Like, you better pick this up. How are you going to do that? And for me, in a lot of ways, running became this sort of default. Like I said, always been athletic, but I wasn't like a cross country runner. But I liked to run. I'm built for the long haul. I'm not. You don't want me in the change of direction, quick stuff.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you want that. I'll take for an extended period of time. Just tell me to go. But I found running really early on in that process, and I was really unhappy, really disappointed in myself. Basically packing my bags up and moving home with my tail between my legs, to sort of figure out what the next steps were. And that next 6 to 8 months was really sort of piling on what that failed law school experience had generated. I had a failed relationship. I had my grandfather, who I was very close with, pass away. Still couldn't find a job. A lot of these things that are, everyday person problems. Certainly I wasn't having a pity party, but my heart hurt and my head hurt and the anxiety hurt and the stress was a lot. And running was always this thing that I could default to, where I had control, and I controlled the music, and I controlled the pace, and I controlled the route, and I controlled, the way in which I was going to feel in that moment, when I was at a time in life that I didn't feel like I had control,
Yeah.
of any of those things. And very quickly found myself, prescribing a run whenever I needed a run. And so that might have been waking up at 3 a.m. and feeling sick to myself about myself and going for a run. And then, getting home, sleeping a little bit, having breakfast when you wake up the next day and be like, man, I need to go for another run.
Yeah.
Just building mileage, and all the while sort of in my head, building this idea that I was going to run across the country.
Mhm.
And that had been something that I sort of started saying out loud to people when the law school failure took place. I ended up driving back across the country. But it was really deeply rooted, and it continued to grow and grow and grow in all of those, instances where I was out on the road thinking about how I was going to figure out what I would do next.
Quick question, because you mentioned how running was helpful for having something in your life you can control, right? On top of that, on top of the control factor, what do you think it was that running was giving you in that time? What was the running giving you in the process?
I mean, it was therapeutic in a lot of ways. A great run with great music in a great place brings great joy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and joy, if you're seeking it and you're in need of it, is a dose of something that everybody deserves. So I think there was joy, there was the time to just think through what it was I was trying to process, but not do it from, a static position. I think if you're trying to process things and you're sitting still, you know, like that's not the right recipe. That's actually a recipe for reverting as opposed to growing forward.
Mm,
And that was something that my dad always shared with me, like don't be idle, okay? Like just keep moving. And if you keep moving, whether that's walking or running or whatever it might be for anybody, that's the path that you need to get yourself on if you want to go and find the answers that you need.
yeah, that's fantastic. So this idea of running across the country, bro, you're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I I love Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
That was always an iconic movie. And just in general, like I knew that whatever I was gonna do had to be like a big hard reset. And it couldn't just be like, oh, I'm gonna go train for a marathon. Full respect to anybody that goes and trains for a marathon. Nothing against it whatsoever. I remember my mom saying, well, why not just run across a state? And I was like, because the state's not enough. You know, it, it was this idea of needing and wanting the full comprehensive journey, the perspective, the effort, the ups, the downs, the whole process that made across the country really just like the thing that needed to happen. But I also knew it couldn't just be about me, some guy in his late 20s boohooing about himself and, the things that he has to own up to as far as his failures. It had to have a bigger picture, and was lucky enough to get connected with a wonderful organization called the Travis Manion Foundation, that empowers veterans and families of the fallen to develop character in future generations. And this was 2011 time period.
Yeah.
So, we were in peak war stage in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, I knew that I wanted to find a way to give back in some form or fashion, and to be able to serve an organization in my effort, in my growth that would serve others was a beautiful sort of synergy that came to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was not long after contacting them that they were like, okay, well, you can go run, we'll cover your budget. You just have to fundraise double. And I was
Huh.
like, oh, like, okay, all right, now we got to go. We got 3 months. We got to like do some real intentional training right now. Can't
Was
just
that
can't just be
was,
running because you're upset.
yeah, was that like a oh snap moment where you're like, hey, can I do this? And when they're like, yeah, you're like, wait, now I really got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and one of the people that I briefed on their team about it is my business partner now. So that full circle I'll get to a little bit down the road. But they were like, come on down and tell us what you're thinking. And so my sister and I, and our friend Alex, we went with a presentation that was, at that point we would have called it a PowerPoint presentation. Now we call them slide decks, right?
Yeah.
There's something fancy, but we had like calculated average gas prices and what we thought, the average motel cost would be and what we thought I would need to eat calorie wise. And we were like, here's our budget. And they were like, cool, you can go. And I was like, all right, let's do
Nice.
it.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, we started on St. Patrick's Day, and we were out in California, a place called Dana Point, and ran up to the pier in Santa Monica over a 3-day span of time, touched the ocean, and just started trucking. And through LA, through the Mojave Desert, Flagstaff, Albuquerque, Amarillo, Oklahoma City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Columbus, Pittsburgh, my hometown of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, down to DC, and had sort of a big finish there. And once again, my now business partner, he sort of said, do you think that's really coast to coast? Like DC, I get it, like, the Chesapeake, kind of like challenging me. And I was like, I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's coast to coast. So we had a nice little party, and then I went back and ran the rest of the way to the ocean. So
Oh, nice. Nice.
got the full thing. Yeah.
How many days?
It was 3,025 miles over 154 days, and took a total of 7 days where I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Found it was a lot easier to just keep going. After the halfway mark, it was like, just keep going, because the days that I did take off, made that next day after, my body was like, whoa, dude, what was all that yesterday? Like, now we're back at it. It was easier to just keep pounding.
On average, how many miles did you cover, like, in a given day?
It was close to a marathon. I think the mathematical average is like 22 or 23 a day.
Yeah.
Some days, I think the most I did was close to 40, and that was the very, very last day where I was like, this has to end. Like this just needs to end. I think some of the lowest miles I did was in Amarillo, Texas. I think I did like 7 or 8 miles one day, because I had tried to eat a 72-ounce steak at the Big Texan the night before, and so I was not properly fueled. I was had the meat sweats.
Yeah, struggling, man.
Yeah.
How did you feel on morning one? How did you feel on, let's say, morning 75, right, halfway through? And then how'd you feel on morning, I think you said 156, or last day, the last morning?
I think I felt nervous and excited to start. I didn't know what I didn't know. I wasn't sure what I was going to encounter. I wasn't sure what the route was going to look like. We were comfortable with that. I had my sister and our friend Alex with us, and they would meet me every 4 to 5 miles. So, it was kind of like, we're gonna learn, in these first few weeks, and my body's gonna learn. But I don't know what I don't know, and we'll find it out and figure it out. That was kind of just the approach. At that day 75, I'm in like beast mode, like, fully in the zone, had to navigate all sorts of different challenges, had run into all sorts of weird people, places, and situations, chased by a couple packs of dogs, that sort of thing. Like, you're comfortable with being on the highway, and all that. And really just like total confidence. By the time I was halfway, I was just like, this is just, we're just going at this every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finishing was like, a great sense of relief and accomplishment. And then I think also sort of like an absence. You have this thing, this very specific thing that drives you every single day. You have this cause that's been pushing you. You have these personal things that you're processing through. And then you're kind of like, oh, well, all right, well, did I fix all the things? No. Do I still need to work on these things? Yes. I just need to figure out how to carry on that work in the absence of, the way I was going about it.
Yeah.
And for me, fortunately, that was continuing to work with the Travis Manion Foundation, and working with veterans and surviving family members, and all the wonderful work that they do over there.
I was going to ask, how did that run change your life? Like, what did you learn in it? Who was Who was Albie before the run? Who was Albie after?
I mean, it dramatically changed my life. I think, Albie before was very quick to self implode in the face of challenge or, you know, an obstacle. I was very good at, you know, sort of like self destruction.
Mm,
Whether that was the way in which I went about my social life, whether that was the way in which I went about reacting to challenges, professionally, whether that was the way in which I sort of imploded with law school. I would accept those things, almost relenting and allowing it to just defeat me. And Albie post that takes none of that, and has no time for it. It's not to say that I'm perfect or that I haven't had pitfalls and failures along the way since the run, which has been about 11 years. But I have a new set standard and a new understanding and appreciation for like exactly how far I can drive through something.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think that's a perfect segue because I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you mentioned, I didn't know that yet, with the Travis Manion Foundation, that you're now business partner was one of the points of contact that you dealt closely with. And after continuing the work that you do with the foundation and moving forward, you transition with entrepreneurship and taking on Valor Craft Performance. What was, I guess, the inception of that discussion, how that came about, and what's going through your mind as you're becoming the president and literally going into rebranding, releasing new products to market, and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was wild. I think I had a wonderful career with Travis Manion Foundation. Right around the time COVID was kicking off, I was just sort of looking for something new. I had the opportunity to join a startup for about a year, and that was a fun experience. But as startups go, there's no guarantee on long term. I was building out a government sales channel, and they just sort of decided that government sales was not necessarily the path that they were looking to pursue. And
Mhm.
so I found myself really sort of very quickly having to make that next transition and thinking to myself, well, what do I want to do? I put together a little consulting operation, started calling friends and people that I thought might be fun or worked in industries that I thought would be fun, and just sort of planned on doing Albie things. I'm going to do relationships, and wherever I'm able to offer value through relationships, I'll find value in return.
Yeah.
And I picked up a quick client, and then I called my friend James, who had at the time, after leaving Travis Manion Foundation, built up a portfolio of cannabis companies. And I was like, I'm interested personally and professionally. And I hit him up and I was like, James, what do you think about, me doing, 10 hours a month, business development style? And he's like, nah, I don't want your business development. I've got a company. I want you to run it. We built a company, and we sort of moved on from the person. It wasn't the right fit. We have a 1-year-old company, and if you want it, you can take it and make it your own. I'm here to mentor you. I'm here to teach you. We've got, the right support around you. But, this is in a high risk industry, in a tip of the spear sort of position in the industry. And if you want it, it's yours. We'll give you ownership, and you can renovate it and make it your own.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like, that was not exactly what I was fishing for. Um, but I was happy with what I caught. And, I think the idea of having, I was like, I've never run a company. I don't know how to run a company, like I know that I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
I'm interested in cannabis. I think it's fascinating as an industry. I think it's, very fun on a personal level. I also enjoy like just the practical application of it in my processes. And so like, yeah, like I'm into it. I get it, but you know, I don't know what I don't know. And I have people here that are going to, sort of guide me and support me in that process as I learn. Like, yeah, let's go for it.
Do you
So
think Albie, before running across America, would have jumped in?
yeah, but I think he would have messed it up.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, he was bullish too, but I think it was just such a crazy proposition in the sense that, like, I never saw it coming. I wasn't looking in that transition to become a business owner. I wasn't interested in becoming a president of a company. It wasn't necessarily that I wasn't into it, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And then it was right in front of me. And I was like, well, yeah, I think this is the kind of opportunity you take in life. Worst case scenario, I'm going to learn and grow a ton, right?
Yeah.
Best case scenario, I'm going to build a company that I'm super proud of that creates generational wealth for my family.
Yeah.
I'm all right with figuring out what happens in the middle.
Yeah. What were the initial challenges that happened? I imagine you get in, hit the ground running, and as many dudes listening, many guys listening, whether they're on Spotify, YouTube, they know if they started their company, you have this beautiful business plan, or you have this beautiful layout, this picture, this idea, the strategy, and you start. And like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. What was that first punch for you, man?
Oh man, there were I think a lot of punches thrown. I fancy myself pretty durable and resilient, and again, it wasn't like I had this idea that I was bringing to life. It was going in and seeing a car and saying, I like that car. I'd drive that car. I'd do some things differently with this car. I'm the engine. Let's go figure out how that all works together. So, immediately we started clearing out the existing product inventory. It was very much a CBD company. And I said, I don't want to run a CBD company. I want to do more than just CBD. It's a beneficial additive ingredient. We'll use it because we have a great source for it. And when you have a great source for CBD, it provides a great deal of benefit. But I'm also interested in other cannabinoids. I'm also interested in functional mushrooms. I'm also interested in other natural ingredients. And I want to make things in this hybrid plant performance model that I've coined and create products that help people do more. So we pair a cannabinoid with a functional mushroom. We bolster that with other natural extracts, and we want to make things that are going to do more for your day, do more for your night, do more for your life. That's
Yeah.
what Valor Craft Performance is all about. But getting to that point was like, knocking down walls and cleaning up website copy and cleaning up the branding and making it speak in the way that I would speak, while also going out and having to raise money. Like, this was something that was not funded, and it needed to be funded. So you're cleaning things up, and you're going and you're speaking to people about this idea, this feeling that you have and what this could become, and you're really getting them to buy into you. And fortunately, I was able to get some people to buy into me, one in particular who has a lot of faith and gave that first investment. And that then allowed us to go and create this concept, this hybrid plant performance concept in real form. So we immediately were going in to the R&D process, creating our launch and our landing gummies. Our launch gummy has apple cider vinegar, lion's mane mushroom, beetroot, B12, and CBD. Our nightly gummy landing has CBD, CBN, skullcap extract, and melatonin. But I'd never gone through an R&D process, right? Like I'd never gone through a product manufacturing timeline, right? But, like I'd never built a brand,
Yeah.
like I'd built other things. And so just sort of running full speed while you're breathing through a straw and being cool with the fact that you might trip or get cracked with the branch at any time was just sort of the approach.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'm glad you kind of brought up like the ingredients within some of the products that you've created and been kind of researching it. Because as I'm sitting here, I'll even pull them out on my desk. You know, because I'm curious about what you found for performance enhancement. So you mentioned B12. I have like B12 extract. I have L-theanine. I use it more of like nootropics, right, to help with my focus and
yeah.
memory recall. Bacopa. So I feel I have those on my desk that I kind of mix with. But talk a little bit about the implementation that you also get when it comes to using these traditional products as well as the CBD, the hemp, and the benefits that you get from the functional mushrooms as well.
Yeah, I mean, in our sort of like most general kind of like minimum viable product concept way, it was like, let's take things that people should be taking every day and combine them into one dose in one product. So,
Nice.
our launch gummy is very much just a new take of the plant medicine approach to a daily vitamin, right? Like, what are things that Ted and Albie can take that are going to help with our focus, that are going to help with stress, that will help manage pain? Let's take those things, let's bolster that with something that will help with cellular energy, and let's put that in a gummy. Let's make that in a nice, easy, consumable form to meet the consumer where they want to be. Everything we buy these days is meeting the consumer with some sort of need for a mood through gummy form. You just
Yeah.
walk down a Target aisle or anywhere and you're like, oh wow, I want to feel this way or I want to feel that way. And I don't mean to make light of it. I think some of it is a little bit like just fascinating in the way that like we've got like literally a gummy for every potential mood you could possibly seek in this life.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted to take that formula and again apply it on the plant medicine side of things. I wanted to use cannabis and the 110 plus, cannabinoids that are out there. As we learn more, there's more specific tailored application that those cannabinoids have. Let's use those with functional mushrooms. These things have been around for thousands of years. They've spanned cultures and
Yeah.
continents. Like there's a reality to their benefit. And so let's put that in a form that is, sort of meeting the consumer on that daily wellness adventure.
What was your, I guess, first introduction in the depth of your knowledge, what you know now? Did you take on the company and then you're like, okay, let me do this research, or were you already familiar with this realm, this niche where it comes when it comes to hemp and all that, the cannabinoids, or was this like a process that you had to educate yourself while learning branding, while learning raising capital? You took on a lot really quick, man.
Yeah, no, and having a young family to make everything all that much more enjoyable in the process, as a man, sometimes you find yourself balancing and carrying all sorts of different plates and making sure that they aren't dropping. And so far, I think I've only cracked a few. But as far as learning in this space, from a business side of things, I have my mentor. I have James, who's my partner, who's he's just the best. And I'm really, really grateful that I have him. But aside from the things that I could ask him about, what to do or what not to do, like I was also really empowered to just go and figure it out and learn, So like as much as I was passionate about the space of cannabis, the space of functional mushrooms, I was also a student of it. I wasn't an expert and I wasn't convinced, then, nor am I now that I'm an expert in it. I'm just somebody who's continuously trying to learn more about it. So,
Yeah.
so that's for starters on the ingredient side of things. As far as the building of the business side of things, it was, you learn and you're going to learn whether you're winning or learn whether you're failing. And that whole process is that's the important piece.
A lot of the guys that are listening are either working their business, trying to scale it, just maybe trying to look for another income stream to put food on the table for them and their family, or maybe just set their families up for success. What would you tell somebody maybe weighing some options in life, or maybe working a great opportunity and looking to make the best of it, from everything that you've learned from running across the country, taking on leadership with Valor Craft Performance? What advice would you give to some of the guys listening who are looking to elevate themselves and maybe help get their family to that next level?
Man, I think I'll go right back to stuff that was rooted in me through my work with the Travis Manion Foundation and the application of the study of positive psychology and what makes humans live their best version of life. And they talk about these main factors of positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, achievement, vitality. Like if you can look at your life right now and you see an absence of any of those things, that right there as a starting point for assessment is a great way to start reflecting on what it is you're doing and whether it is you're doing the right things to benefit your overall well-being. If you're missing in multiple categories, as I just mentioned, then that should be a red flag that like maybe this isn't the path that you're supposed to be on. So that's like one thing. I'm big on assessment, and I think that positive psychology and the PERMA model is what I just referred to is a great sort of starting point. But I would also sort of say like you only get one of these.
Yeah.
We only get one life, and if you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out whether taking that chance is the right next step or not, you know, I think you one should be assessing yourself. You two should be having conversations with those that are immediately impacted by any decision that you make, because that's an important thing to consider. right? And three, you should be seeking mentorship and people that are able to offer you guidance in that process. Like, nobody jumps into the same bucket, right? The bucket that I jumped in to start my business is very different from the bucket that you jumped in to start yours. And so it's not like I can say, well, if I was you, this is what I would do. But I think you want to be thoughtful with it. And you also want to appreciate the fact that, like, again, as I said, you only get one of these. So what are you going to do with it? And if taking that next step and starting that business is the right next step for you, then, at that point that's a burn the ship sort of mentality, right? Like, there's no failure. There is no going back. We're going to go until we go. And if we hit a point where it doesn't make sense, then, so be it.
Yeah, I have that on my vision board. Burn your boats, burn your ships. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love that you said that, man. Um,
Yeah.
Albie, how can folks find you, connect with you, follow up with you, catch all the work you're doing, and maybe even use some of the amazing products that you guys are producing at Valor Craft Performance?
Absolutely, man. And I would say the best ways for Valor Craft Performance, you can find us at www.buyvcp.com, buyvcp.com. You can find us on Instagram at Valor Craft Performance. You can find me on Instagram at Albie_Tross, ALBIE_Tross. And you can also, shoot me a message. However, I mean, I don't know if you ever give out emails, but you're welcome to put my email on the bottom of the screen, however you want to do that. And anybody that's listening to this, if they use the code TED25, will get a discount on our products so they can test out the hybrid plant performance approach that we've created. And I would also just say, to you specifically, as you mentioned, L-theanine, stay tuned, because we got a rad drink coming out in 2024 that I'm really excited about. And
Play with me.
no, you'll be able to get it.
I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm listening. Well, that's fantastic. Last question, Albie, and this is usually the heaviest, which is what I saved for the last four. What is something that has happened to you, or something that you've seen in your life that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
This is the first thing that I'll go to, and my father's my ultimate mentor, my ultimate role model. And I remember he would go to this woman's house who had, I don't know what the appropriate term is, but she had mental complications. She was in a wheelchair. She was, by most accounts, homeless. She was, at a certain place where she would stay. And he would go there and he would change her bandages. She had these really interesting bandages, and as a kid, I remember thinking, like, wow, that's really weird. Like there was like a reaction viscerally, but like, wow, that's really amazing. Like, that's what my dad goes and does.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go do that. That's the type of person that I was around, that I had the opportunity to sort of reflect on. And I've always sort of told myself, like, if I can be half the person that he is, then I'm going to be a pretty great dude. So that's just one thing that I think has sort of impacted the way that I look at what my time on earth is here and meant to do, and the opportunity that I have to serve others. That's the moment, or the memory that I have that I reflect on there.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I think it's just a reminder to any fathers that are listening. I've announced on the podcast that my wife and I are expecting, I'm going to be a father soon. So I've been talking to a lot of dads, and getting that wisdom from them. And a lot of them talk about the example that you set, and how you show up. And what you just said, I think for any father listening, they that resonates, because not only did you say the type of man your father was, you said, if I'm half that person, I'm going to be a good dude. And I'd say you're doing well so far, brother. I can only imagine the type of person your father is, because you've been fantastic this whole episode. So, Albie, thank you so much, brother, for the time.
Yo, thank you so much. You have a great day, man.
Absolutely. And I'm going to really quickly recap some of what you left in terms of the gems for this episode, because a lot of people are either at the gym, they're cleaning, or they're driving while listening to the episode. 10 and 2, the yellow means slow down, don't blow past it. But what are you doing? That moment you had with yourself, Albie, and a lot of us could maybe take a moment, stop, and look in the mirror, because I literally tweeted about this earlier, or X'd about this earlier. We're not honest with ourselves. And because we're not honest with ourselves, we continue down a path that could be detrimental. But taking the time to be honest, look in the mirror and say, what are you doing? And maybe put you back on that right track, setting big goals in life and then sticking through it. When life gets heavy, what do you lean into that you can control that's therapeutic? Like Albie found the running and leaned into that. And then accepting that challenge, taking the first step, being prepared in the pitch, the slide deck back in the day, PowerPoint presentation to run across the country and then find new confidence to take on challenges. Oftentimes we lack the confidence to do big things because we haven't done big things. And you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And then connecting with people every day, and there is a reality, there's a reality to the benefit, right? The reality to the benefit of becoming who you need to be, figuring out an opportunity that could pay dividends down the future and not being afraid to take that. Just like Albie was able to speak it, walk into that leadership and take that next step. Focusing on figuring out what you can learn, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, vitality, the PERMA model, as Albie mentioned, that positive psychology to help you get to where you need to in life, take on those challenges. And if you have a great example in life, if you're half that person, you could be a great dude. Guys, thank you so much for listening and making it to the end of the podcast. We really appreciate it. As always, I'm going to ask that you share this with a friend that can get value from it. Hit that like and subscribe button so you can get a notification of a new episode each and every single week. And of course, leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing, because we don't get better unless you tell us how. With that being said, guys, as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine. They don't want the rain, but you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's go.